The morning light trickled through the sheer curtains of my apartment, casting long shadows across the floorboards. I sat at the kitchen table, stirring cream into my coffee, half listening to the hum of traffic outside. Nothing unusual. No foreboding sense. Just another Thursday morning in Portland. I'd just finished folding the laundry and had a quiet day ahead, until I picked up my phone and typed out a simple message. "Hey, what time is the baby shower this weekend?" I'd triple-checked the date in my planner. Vera had mentioned it would be sometime this month, and while she never sent formal invitations to me, I assumed, as her sister, I didn't need one. It wasn't uncommon for her to be vague. She always claimed to be too busy to plan things the traditional way. But I had helped her pick out decorations 2 weeks ago. I'd driven across town to drop off samples of hand-sewn napkins I'd customized myself because she said, "We want something personal." So, I sent the message. And I waited. The reply came minutes later. Just one sentence. Cold. Detached. It was yesterday. Just close friends. For a moment, I didn't breathe. I reread the message again. Then again. I thought maybe I misread it. Maybe she mistyped. But it was all there. Matter of fact. Sealed with a period like a door slamming shut. I set the phone down slowly, the warmth of the coffee forgotten. Yesterday. Just close friends. I wasn't family enough. I wasn't even friend enough. And somehow, she said it like it was the weather forecast. My hands stayed still, resting on the edge of the table. I didn't text back. What was I supposed to say? Cool, thanks for letting me know. Congrats on deliberately cutting me out. Even my anger felt muted. That was the worst part. It didn't shock me as much as it should have, because somewhere deep down, I had been expecting this. For years, Vera had been the one who chose who mattered and who didn't. She was meticulous about her circle, the way others curated Instagram feeds. She always said, "If you want peace, you keep things tight." But apparently, tight meant there was no room left for blood. Still, I clung to hope. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was just a casual brunch. Maybe it hadn't even been a real baby shower. Later that evening, I curled up on the couch with my laptop, thinking a good movie would distract me. Instead, I opened Instagram. A mutual friend had reshared a story from Vera's husband. The first image was harmless enough. Pink and gold balloons, a tiered cake that read "Baby Caldwell," white linen tablecloths under a shaded patio. The next slide knocked the air out of me. A group photo. 20 people. Vera in the middle, beaming. Her hand cradled her belly, the other around a woman I barely recognized. The caption read, "So grateful for real family." Real. Family. I stared at it until my eyes burned. Not because it was unexpected, but because it confirmed everything I hadn't wanted to believe. They hadn't forgotten to invite me. They'd planned around excluding me. Carefully, deliberately. I scrolled through comments. One friend wrote, "This looks gorgeous. So glad it was intimate." Another said, "Love your tribe. Exactly the way it should be." I closed the app without liking, without saving, without commenting. I wasn't part of the circle. I wasn't even on the edges anymore. I sat in the dark, the only sound in the room being the low hum of my fridge. I tried to think back to when I helped Vera pick the theme. "Maybe something rustic but modern," she had said, sipping her smoothie as if we were discussing a Pinterest board and not my investment of time, money, and emotion. I had suggested the exact colors she ended up using. I'd sent her Etsy links. I'd even pre-ordered small candle favors on my credit card because she said, "I'll Venmo you next week." That never happened. I went back through our texts. No mention of the date. No mention of a change in plan. Just silence. Calculated silence. I opened our family group chat. Nothing. Not even a "what a lovely day yesterday" from Mom. That was when it hit me harder. Maybe no one said anything because no one was surprised I wasn't there. You know what hurts more than being forgotten? Being intentionally left out and watching everyone else pretend it was normal. I stared down at the invitation list I'd started for my own birthday a few months ago. Vera's name was at the top. I drew a slow, dark line through it with my pen. The truth was, this wasn't just about a party. It was about what that party represented. The subtle, cruel message that my presence was unnecessary, unwanted, inconvenient. I closed my eyes and took a slow breath. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened a blank page in my planner and started writing names, not out of anger, but intention. Names of people who showed up when I needed them. Names of people who never made me feel like I had to earn my seat at the table. Not all of them were related to me. Some were friends from my book club. Others were neighbors. One was my old professor who always remembered my birthday. As I wrote, the ache in my chest didn't disappear, but it dulled, slightly, like a bruise starting to settle. I glanced back at my phone. No new messages. Vera wasn't going to follow up. She didn't think she had to, and maybe that was the final message I needed. The next evening found me curled on the couch, glass of red in hand, the laptop balanced across my legs. I wasn't trying to dig into anything. Honestly, I wanted to drown out the echo of that text, pretend it hadn't chilled my chest since the second it arrived. But avoidance has its limits. Eventually, you start opening tabs you don't mean to. I opened my banking app on impulse, half out of habit, half just looking for distraction. A new charge for groceries had cleared, nothing unusual. Then, just a few lines below, I spotted it. Gathered Grace Events, $1,200. My first reaction was confusion. I don't plan events. I hadn't paid for anything big lately, had I? I tapped the line. My name, my account, no mistake. And then the note field. Venue down payment. Vera's baby shower. For a moment, all the air in the room felt heavier. I set the wine down without even looking where, my hand still hovering near the screen, as if touching it might change what I saw. Weeks ago, Vera had texted me, "Hey, do you mind helping with some baby stuff? Just a couple of expenses. Promise I'll get you back next month." I'd nodded while reading it in the car, parked outside a coffee shop. It hadn't even crossed my mind that she might be using me to bankroll an event she had no intention of letting me attend. I leaned back against the cushion and stared at the ceiling. Not in disbelief. No, that ship had sailed, but in something quieter, like the slow click of puzzle pieces you weren't ready to see put together. "You don't lose people like keys," I murmured aloud. "They walk away holding parts of you they never earned. And apparently, sometimes they swipe your card on the way out." After another sip, I opened Facebook. Just muscle memory now. I wasn't sure what I was looking for until I saw it, or didn't, rather. The baby registry post from a month ago. I had been tagged in it when Vera shared it, back when we were supposedly planning together. My comment was still there. "So excited for you!" But the tag? Gone. My name had been removed, like someone reaching into a photo album and erasing only your face. That same sensation crawled back in, the one I'd felt while scrolling Instagram the night before. But this was worse. This was personal, digital vandalism. Quiet. Efficient. I clicked into the shared family album we used for holidays. New folders had appeared. Caldwell baby shower. Password protected. I hadn't even known she updated it. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, a mutual friend. "Hope you're recovering from the weekend. Looked amazing." I stared at the message for several seconds, then replied. I wasn't invited. No follow-up, just silence. Bitterness wasn't what I wanted to feel. But lately, it was the only flavor I could taste. Everything else had started to spoil. It was past midnight when I closed the laptop and leaned my head back. Maybe she hadn't tagged me because she didn't want me there. Maybe this was her way of saying it without saying it. And then the final cut came the next morning. I'd been avoiding Instagram again, but my fingers slipped and refreshed the page anyway. That's when I saw it. A photo from Vera's close friend, Julie. Vera hugging another woman I didn't recognize, captioned, "Chosen family is everything." The comments below felt like salt. "So glad we kept it drama-free this time." I didn't need to ask who drama meant. That word had followed me around since childhood. Anytime I dared to speak up, to call something what it was, someone would roll their eyes and say, "There she goes again." But what really lodged in my throat wasn't the caption, or the comments, or the unfamiliar arms wrapped around my sister's shoulders. It was the realization that somewhere along the line, Vera had stopped seeing me as part of her origin story. She'd started rewriting it, bit by bit, with me cropped out of every frame. I thought about all the times I bit my tongue to keep the peace, all the dinners where I swallowed hard and nodded through her backhanded remarks, all the birthdays I remembered while she forgot mine. "If you keep your head down long enough," I whispered, "they forget you were standing." The weight of that hit harder than I expected. I stood up from the couch, moved slowly to my kitchen counter, and grabbed my planner. Not to count days or mark anniversaries, but to write. There was a name I hadn't seen in months but needed to write first. Dad. Then another, Aunt Marion. Then Gloria from work, who brought me soup during my flu. I wasn't making a list of guests for revenge. I was drawing a map back to myself, the version of me who had always been there for others and just wanted to know someone saw her when she entered a room. I whispered to the room, "Send the invites." My voice sounded steady, not bitter, just clear, and the first name I wrote was Dad's. Saturday morning, I drove south with a silence that felt heavier than the clouds stretching low across the Willamette Valley. The kind of silence that doesn't beg for music or distraction, just the hum of tires on asphalt, the familiar winding of Highway 99 toward Eugene, and a mind trying to process what it already knew too well. My parents still lived in the same beige split level I grew up in, the one with the porch light that always flickered and the wind chime Vera hated. As I pulled into the driveway, my father was already on the porch, mug in hand, waving like he hadn't just watched his daughter get scrubbed out of a family event. "Morning, kiddo," he said, stepping down the last 2 stairs to hug me. "You look tired." "Didn't sleep much," I replied, which was true, though only half the reason. Inside, the scent of cinnamon toast lingered. Mom had gone out to her garden. Dad and I sat at the table, sipping coffee from chipped mugs, exchanging light words that danced around the storm. "So," I said, casually enough, "how was the baby shower?" He looked at me like I'd asked him the square root of 71. "What baby shower?" I tilted my head. "Vera's." He paused. A small laugh escaped him, almost nervous. "You mean it hasn't happened yet?" "It already did. Thursday." He blinked. That laugh again, quieter this time. "No one told us." And then I saw it, the second it registered. His jaw stiffened, and he looked down into his mug like it could give him answers. "They didn't need us there, huh?" There are things people say that sound like jokes but aren't. His voice didn't crack. It just dropped, like something he was trying not to let fall too hard. I nodded, not trusting my voice. We didn't say anything for a long while. The birds outside chirped like nothing had happened, and maybe for them, nothing had. But for us, that moment hit deeper than any insult Vera could have texted. It wasn't just me she excluded. It was Dad, the man who paid for her college, who repaired her car more times than I could count, who once drove through a snowstorm to bring her soup when she caught the flu during finals. I wanted to rage. I wanted to scream. But instead, I said the one thing that had been circling my chest like smoke. When people disappear from your life, it's sometimes because you stopped being useful in theirs. Dad didn't respond. He just took a sip of his lukewarm coffee and changed the subject. That night, after I got home and shed the emotional weight like a damp coat, I checked my messages. One name caught my eye, Tanya. We hadn't spoken in years. She used to be close to Vera in high school. Dance team, sleepovers, shared prom dresses. Then one day she just stopped coming around. Her message was short. Don't take it personal. She did the same when she got married. No invite. No explanation. I stared at it, rereading it like it might morph into something different. I didn't need an explanation. I needed the truth. Tanya and I ended up talking for nearly an hour. She told me how she too found out about Vera's wedding through Facebook. That when she asked about it later, Vera simply said, "It was intimate. We kept it small." I asked her how she coped. "I realized she only keeps people who don't call her out," Tanya said. "It wasn't a mistake. It's a habit." And just like that, another piece of the puzzle locked into place. Vera didn't just remove people. She curated her life like an Instagram filter. If you didn't match the aesthetic, she erased you. It was never personal, because to her, people weren't people. They were props. I thanked Tanya for the call, hung up, and walked to my bookshelf. There was a photo album buried behind a stack of cookbooks, back when Vera still invited me to things. I flipped through a few pages. Smiles. Shared jokes. Then I remembered the comment she made once during a dinner party. "You're so intense," she had said, laughing into her wine glass. "That's why I keep things simple." At the time, it seemed like a harmless jab, but now, years later, I saw the subtext. Vera didn't like mirrors. She liked spotlights. She couldn't stand when someone held up truth like a lantern and exposed the cracks. In her world, honesty was drama. Discomfort was negativity. And people like me, people who remembered too much, were threats to her curated calm. I pulled up a few of her recent posts again. Same language, same tone. "So happy to be part of your chosen family." No drama this time, just love. Those words weren't innocent. They were grenades wrapped in glitter. She wasn't just excluding me. She was redefining me as the problem. I sat back, feeling that familiar ache swell in my chest. But this time, I didn't crumble under it. "Some people don't need closure," I said softly to the room. "They need control." And I wasn't giving her any more of mine. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, then returned to my laptop. My planner was still open. The invite list was still half empty. I scrolled back to the top and stared at it. This wasn't about a party anymore. It was about the narrative. If I didn't write my place into this chapter, she would erase me from the whole book. I tapped the keyboard and typed the next name, then the next. And next to one name, I wrote something special in bold. Guest of honor. It was early afternoon, the kind where sunlight pours in through the blinds, just enough to remind you that the world's still turning, even when yours isn't. I was at my dining table, working on a client's renovation layout, trying to force myself into the comfort of measurements and muted palettes. I needed the predictability. My world had been too unpredictable lately. That's when my phone rang. Not a number I recognized, but local. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" "Hi, Sable. It's Chelsea. I don't know if you remember me. I helped plan the baby shower with Vera." Her voice was tight, like she regretted calling even as she spoke. I didn't know what to expect, but I leaned back and said, "Yeah, I remember. I need to tell you something. You might already know, or maybe not. This is awkward." "Just say it," I said, sharper than I intended. "I was recording a video toast for Vera," she said quickly. "People were mingling in the background." Later, when I was editing the clip, I caught something she said, "About you." There was a pause. I didn't fill it. She said, "I didn't invite her. She's too much. Always brings a weird vibe to things." I stared at the wall. Chelsea continued, "I swear, it wasn't something I meant to hear. But once I did, I couldn't not tell you. I'm so sorry. Do you want the clip?" I didn't answer right away. My fingers tightened around the edge of the table. I could feel the heat rising through my chest, not the kind that exploded, the kind that simmered. "Yes," I said finally, calm as glass. "Send it." She did. And when I hit play, there it was. Vera's voice. Crystal clear. Confident. As if she was talking about canceling a gym membership. "She's too much." 3 words, 3 sharp, unfiltered syllables. Not meant for my ears, but now burned into my memory. There it was. Confirmation. Not speculation. Not miscommunication. Just the plain, ugly truth spoken behind the safety of other people's laughter. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there and listened to it again and again, because that's what betrayal sounds like when it doesn't bother to dress up. I opened a blank note on my phone and typed out her words. Too much. I stared at them, reread them, then added, "That's what they call women they can't manipulate." I closed my laptop and stepped into the kitchen to refill my glass. As I did, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mother. I answered with a cautious breath. "Sable," she said, almost sweetly. "I just heard about the baby shower mix-up." Mix-up? Is that what we're calling it now? She paused. "Look, Vera's pregnant. You know how emotional things get. Maybe she didn't mean to exclude you. These things spiral. You shouldn't take it so personally." So when she said I'm too much, was that also a pregnancy symptom? Silence. I just think, Mom began again, maybe you're being a little sensitive. There it was, that casual sweep of the broom, that lifelong habit of dusting my pain under her rug of denial. I've been labeled a lot of things, I said. But sensitive? That one feels more like projection than observation. Sable, I'm hanging up now. And I did, mid-sentence. For the first time in my life. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I was finally done rewarding her indifference. I set my phone down and let the quiet fill the room like an exhale. For hours, I did nothing. Just sat in the low hum of my own clarity. Later that night, as the sky slipped into navy and the windows reflected the dim lamp glow back at me, I opened my laptop again. But this time, I wasn't looking for explanations or validation. I was writing. To Vera. Subject line. No more gray areas. Message. I'm aware of what you said. No need to sugarcoat it. Just don't call me too much when I start acting accordingly. No exclamation points, no emojis, no heat, just wait. I hit send. Not 30 minutes later, my phone chimed. It was a message from Aunt Miriam, Dad's sister. We hadn't spoken in a while, not since she moved to Spokane. But there it was. I heard what happened. I'm proud of you for not shrinking. She's lucky you held on this long. I read it twice. This was the first time someone acknowledged my pain without trying to shrink it. I replied, "Thank you. That means more than you know." Then I shut my laptop and pushed back from the table. I walked to the window, arms crossed, watching the faint flicker of porch lights across the street. "If I'm too much," I whispered, "she's seen nothing yet." The following morning, I stood at my kitchen counter, staring at the bank statement I'd printed the night before. The line item, Gathered Grace Events, $1,200, seemed sharper now, like a headline carved into a marble tombstone. There was no more denying it. I hadn't just been excluded from the baby shower. I'd unknowingly helped pay for it. But there was no boiling rage this time, no shaking hands, just clarity. I picked up my pen, flipped open my planner, and turned to a fresh page. At the top, I wrote, "Invitation list." And then, beneath it, the first name I wrote was Dad's. Not because he asked, not because he deserved to be there, he did, but because he saw me when I needed to be seen. He was honest, real. Next came Aunt Marion. She hadn't sugarcoated the silence or called it a misunderstanding. She simply said, "I'm proud of you." That counted for more than people realized. I kept going. Neighbors who checked on me after my surgery. Colleagues who remembered my birthday without a Facebook reminder. Friends I hadn't spoken to in a while, but knew would understand exactly why this mattered. I opened Canva on my laptop, not for a design template with gilded fonts or pastel balloons, but for something simple and honest. A white card, navy blue border, elegant but not pretentious. At the top, the circle that never forgot. Beneath it, a gathering for those who show up, who speak truth, who stay. I paused. Then I added one final line at the bottom. For those who were never too much. That afternoon, I walked to the FedEx office on 23rd. The air outside was crisp, the kind of cold that reminds you to breathe deep. I handed the flash drive to the clerk, specifying the card stock and size. She looked over the file and smiled politely. "This looks nice." Occasion? I considered lying. Just another brunch, a small get-together. But instead, I said the truth. "It's a gathering for people who were forgotten." She didn't ask more, just nodded and printed the batch. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table again, this time surrounded by envelopes, stamps, and a candle flickering near the sink. I handwrote each address. No group message, no social media post, no performative blast. Each envelope was personal, with a note tucked inside. "I still remember when you hugged me the day Vera got married. That meant more than you know. You brought me soup when no one else did. Come share a table. You once said I was the loudest truth in the room. Come be heard with me." It was quiet work. Healing work. I didn't need flowers shipped in or catered hors d'oeuvres. I reached out to a local bakery owned by a woman whose husband passed away last year. She said yes before I finished the sentence. I called a DJ who played vinyl records out of his garage on Sundays. He offered to bring his whole collection. This wasn't going to be a party in the traditional sense. It would be a declaration, a restoration. As the night folded in, I poured myself a cup of tea and stared at the final envelope. This one had no address, no stamp. It was for me. I slipped my own name inside, and with a steady hand, I wrote above it, Guest of Honor. I placed it on my desk, propped it beside my framed family photo from a decade ago, the one Vera had carefully cropped in her version. The picture of us, arms wrapped, eyes closed mid-laugh, before life became a performance. If this is drama, I whispered to the quiet, then I'll own it, with flowers and cake. Just as I sat down, my phone lit up. A message from Vera. No greeting, no apology, just 3 words. What's this about? The photo came through around 7 in the evening, just as I was finishing a cup of peppermint tea and prepping envelopes for the last handful of invites. The sun had dipped far enough to cast long shadows through my living room window, and for once, I felt peaceful, steady. Then my phone buzzed, and everything shifted again. The message was from my cousin Leah, distant, not emotionally, just geographically. She lived in Denver, had always stayed neutral when family politics flared, and rarely texted unless it mattered. She sent one image, no words, a baby shower photo, framed in white wood with glitter along the corners, a table centerpiece. Vera stood beside her husband, both glowing with performative warmth. But what gutted me wasn't them. It was the woman next to them. She held a small wooden sign in script, Godmother. The caption below the frame read, "Couldn't have picked a better soul for our baby's spiritual guide." My mouth went dry. I couldn't breathe for a second. That role had been mine, not officially, not publicly, but we'd talked about it. Late one night, a year ago, when Vera had just found out she was pregnant, she called me and said, "If it's a girl, I want her to grow up with your strength. You'll be the one who keeps her grounded." And now I wasn't even background noise. I was overwritten. This wasn't an oversight. This was choreography. Replacing me in the family was one thing, but this was scripted exile. A perfectly filtered moment to validate her new cast, the godmother, the spiritual confidant. Someone polished, presentable, forgettably agreeable. Not only was I erased, someone else was photoshopped over me. I locked my phone and set it on the table like it had scorched my hand. The next day, I agreed to meet Jenny, an old coworker of Vera's, for coffee downtown. She'd reached out after hearing I was planning something and said, "We should talk." "I think you should know something." We met at a cafe near Powell's. She wore her usual oversized coat and smelled like citrus shampoo. Her voice, when she leaned in, was almost apologetic. "Did you get one of the thank you books?" I blinked. "What book?" "The one Vera printed for all the contributors. Really elegant, hardback, gold lettering. She made a custom message for everyone who helped with the shower." I froze. "Everyone?" Jenny nodded. "Everyone whose name was in the vendor list, even people who just dropped off supplies." I didn't speak for a moment, then asked, "Can I see it?" She pulled it up on her phone, flipping through the glossy photos and neatly written captions. There were whole paragraphs thanking people I'd never even met. To Amanda for her warmth and steady support. To Carlos for handling the deliveries. Nothing about me. Not even a line under special mentions. Not a thanks to all who helped behind the scenes. I handed the phone back gently and smiled, but I didn't say goodbye. I stood, nodded, and left. Walking home took longer than usual. Not because of distance, but because grief walks slower than anger. Grief drags. It pulls you through memories you didn't ask to visit. At home, I sat on the couch and opened my laptop. A half-written message to Vera stared back at me. I had drafted it days ago, a short, sharp letter telling her exactly what I thought. But tonight, I deleted it. Instead, I opened a folder labeled June 8, Real Family. I added the image Leah sent me to the folder. Then I opened my invite template and placed it side by side on my screen. Not to compete, to clarify. This wasn't about showing Vera anything anymore. This was about preserving my own truth. Because they'll try to make you feel like reacting makes you petty. That it's better to let it go, to be the bigger person, to float above betrayal. But silence after betrayal isn't nobility, it's surrender. And I was done surrendering. That night, I posted one quote on my private story. White background, black font, no hashtags, no location. I still remember, even if you pretend I wasn't there. 45 minutes later, Vera saw it. No reply. The call came just after 11. I was brushing my teeth when the phone vibrated against the nightstand. Unknown number. My finger hovered for a second before I answered. Hello? Sable? The voice on the other end didn't belong to anyone I expected. It was Blake, Vera's husband. Calm, careful, like someone trying not to light a fuse in a room full of gas. I know it's late, he started. But I saw your story, the one you posted last night. I didn't say anything. He took that as permission to continue. You should know. People are talking. And you're not wrong. I sat down at the edge of the bed, toothbrush forgotten. What do you mean? There's something I think you need to hear, he said. At the vendor meeting, before the shower, Vera said things. I didn't realize I was recording at first. It was during the toast practice. Her mic picked it up. I swallowed. What things? She said, you were unstable, that you'd ruin the energy, that you always make things about you. There was a long silence. My pulse beat in my ears. You recorded that? Unintentionally, but yeah, I have it. I can send it to you. I think you should have it. I gave him a short nod he couldn't see. Send it. When the clip arrived, I played it alone in the dark. There was background chatter, clinking glasses, laughter, and then Vera's voice, clear as daylight. I didn't invite Sable. She's, she always brings drama, makes it about herself. She's unpredictable. Someone laughed. Then she added, this is a new chapter. I'm curating the energy I need. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the wall and thought, she said that about me to strangers. But I wasn't shocked. That's the difference between betrayal and pattern recognition. Betrayal stings. Patterns numb. I filed the clip into my truth folder on my laptop, right next to the bank receipt, the godmother photo, and the edited guest list. There's a difference between being dramatic and finally reacting to years of erasure. By the next morning, I'd made a decision. If Vera got to tell her version of me, half-truths to make herself palatable, then I was going to tell mine. All of it. Unfiltered. But fair. I started messaging people from my invite list. People Vera had ghosted, snubbed, or used as props in her curated world. I asked if they'd talk. Not gossip, just truth. Tanya was first. Then Greg, who had once been Vera's co-worker until she iced him out after he didn't back her idea during a pitch. Then Lila, who helped plan Vera's bachelorette party and wasn't even told the wedding was happening. Each one said the same things in different words. She cut me off when I disagreed. She told people I was difficult. She rewrote everything to make herself look good. I asked if I could record. Most said yes. One said, "Thank you for asking before you told." For the first time in this entire mess, I didn't feel alone. I felt surrounded. Not by rage, by reality. This wasn't revenge. This was documentation. If we don't tell the truth, I told Tanya during our call, she controls the story forever. She agreed. And she's always been the one holding the pen. Elowen came over that night. She brought her camera, her laptop, and 2 thermoses of coffee. We sat at my kitchen table and worked until 2 a.m. We stitched the clips together. Blake's audio, the testimonials, my narration in between. Not angry, just honest. I titled it, When Family Stops Meaning You're Safe. It opened with quiet footage of a closed family album. One by one, voices filled the space. Not blaming, just naming. Elowen edited the final scene. Vera's voice from Blake's clip. Just keep Sable out of it. She always ruins everything. Cut to black. No credits, no commentary, just silence. And then the final screen? Some stories don't need narration, just a spotlight. I stared at the screen for a long moment before hitting upload. I didn't post it to shame her, I said to Elowen. I posted it so she wouldn't shame me again. She nodded. About time. I turned off notifications, closed the laptop, and whispered into the quiet. Let them hear it all. The morning after the video went live, my phone didn't stop buzzing. I let it vibrate on the kitchen counter while I made eggs, while I watered the plant Vera gave me 3 birthdays ago, the one she probably forgot by now. I refused to look. Not yet. Instead, I poured coffee, toasted bread, and sat by the window like nothing had changed. But everything had. By 10 o'clock, curiosity won. I glanced at my screen, dozens of messages, DMs, tags, missed calls, but I didn't click through them. The notification that caught my attention wasn't from a friend or cousin. It was Vera. A post. Public. No names, no tags. Some people love playing victim. We just keep building our lives. That was it. Polished. Passive. Poisonous. I took a screenshot and saved it to the same folder where I'd kept the audio file and testimonials. My truth bank, I'd started calling it. Not for revenge, for reference. This time, I didn't reply. No cryptic quote, no clapback, just silence. Let people tell on themselves. All you have to do is listen. By noon, private messages started trickling in from people I hadn't spoken to in months. This needed to be said. I wish someone had said it sooner. And then a more painful one. I always believed her. I'm sorry. I left those unread for the rest of the day. Not because I was angry, because I was tired of playing mediator for my own story. That evening, I lit a candle and sank into the couch, wrapping myself in the same blanket Dad bought me when I moved into this apartment. Familiar, solid. Unlike the messages I'd ignored until one, out of all of them, made me pause. A voice message from my mother. I pressed play. Her voice was quiet. No false brightness, no guilt-laced reprimands. I watched the video. I didn't know some of that. I don't know what to say. She stopped there. No apology, just a crack in the wall. It was more than I expected, less than I needed. But I held on to it. A sliver of something almost human from a woman who spent a lifetime avoiding conflict like it carried disease. I sat there in the quiet, thinking back to a conversation with Blake months earlier. We were sitting outside a birthday dinner for Vera. Everyone else was inside singing. He looked at me and said, "Big family dynamics make people feel more important than they are. Vera gets that now." It hadn't registered then. I thought he was being cynical. But now I knew. She didn't just become like this overnight. She was groomed to curate, to filter, to choose image over intimacy. The next morning, I met with 3 of the people I'd invited to my own gathering. We got brunch at a little place off Burnside. No fanfare, no agenda. Just eggs, laughter, and a shared sense of liberation. "We've started a group chat," one of them said. "We want to help you plan the next one." I blinked. Next one? Whatever this becomes. This is something, Sable. You lit a fire none of us knew we were holding. I looked around the table. Faces that had once been footnotes in Vera's script were now fully present, loud, seen, real. Maybe I'd lost a sister, but I was gaining a tribe. When the house burns down, you learn who runs in to pull you out. Later that day, walking home with the scent of coffee still on my scarf, I passed the print shop near my block. In the window was a banner. Family is not always blood. I stopped, smiled, stepped inside and pointed to it. "I'll take one," I said. Same design, different colors. The clerk nodded, took down the details. I walked out with a receipt in my pocket and something stronger in my spine. I didn't start the fire. I just refused to burn quietly. The sky over Portland that morning was unusually clear, the kind of crisp brightness that carries the scent of coffee beans and change. I arrived at the backyard space half an hour early, holding a box of folded signs and a small bundle of name tags I'd handwritten the night before. Elowen was already there, stringing up lights with 2 of the women from the book club. "Hey," she called, squinting in the light. "You okay?" I nodded. "Let's make it feel like something we won't forget." The tables were simple. borrowed from neighbors, mismatched on purpose. Buffet-style lunch lined the back edge of the yard. Pasta salad, fruit skewers, lemonade and glass dispensers with floating lemon slices. The playlist was nothing fancy, just a speaker playing Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, a little James Taylor when the mood softened. The chairs, though, they were the heart of it. We didn't line them up in rows, we circled them. Because this wasn't a speech event. It wasn't a look-at-me affair. This was a place for acknowledgement, for those who'd been left out and never asked to be center stage, just visible. At the center of the circle, I placed a single chair with a small hand-lettered card taped to the seat, reserved for Big Sister, not out of invitation, not as a challenge, just acknowledgement that once she had a place here. People started arriving slowly, trickling in with pie tins, home-baked cookies, old laughter. My cousin June hugged me tightly. No one's ever done anything like this, not in our family. I smiled. Maybe we should have. It was Elowen who noticed it first. "Sable," she whispered, tugging my sleeve. I followed her gaze. A black SUV was parked 3 houses down, idling, tinted windows. No one stepped out. "That's Vera's car." I didn't move. I just nodded. "Yeah." And sure enough, no one got out. She stayed in the car for 30 minutes, maybe 40. Then the engine purred, and she drove off. The chair stayed empty the entire time. Silent. Still. Midday settled like warm tea in the air. The soft clinking of forks and quiet conversation wove together like a lullaby we'd forgotten how to sing. Then, one by one, people started to share. My older cousin Diana stood first. "I didn't get invited to Vera's wedding," she said plainly. "Thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was because I moved away. But now?" She looked at me. "Now I know it was about convenience." A former teacher of mine, Miss Rayner, who hadn't seen me since graduation, stood next. "You always showed up when no one else did. It's time someone showed up for you." Their words were not loud, but they filled the space with something far stronger than noise. I didn't speak much. I just listened. And somewhere in those conversations, I realized this wasn't about getting my sister back. It never really was. It was about releasing the belief that I ever had her to begin with. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from us, finally saying, "I saw what you did, and I lived anyway, and I had..." As things began to wind down, I stepped away to get the last quilt I'd been working on, a soft, navy and cream, handmade piece I never had a plan for until now. I folded it slowly and laid it over the empty chair reserved for Vera. Someone asked gently, "That hers?" "No," I said. "It's mine." They looked confused. I smiled softly. "Even if you erase me, I still create beauty." People helped clean up after. No one rushed to leave. They lingered, talked. One woman brought me a potted plant, said, "This is for new things." Then, as I carried plates inside, someone handed me a paper cup. Empty. Folded note tucked beneath. I opened it slowly. No signature, just one line. Not ready to talk, but I was there. I didn't need a name. I folded the note twice, tucked it into the front pocket of my journal, and realized maybe that's enough. The morning after the gathering didn't arrive with heaviness. No aching in my chest, no echoing anger, just quiet. Clean, uncluttered quiet, the kind that didn't feel empty, but earned. I lay in bed for a while, letting the light filter in through the slats of the blinds. When I finally reached for my phone, it was already lit up with messages. Not the kind that ask, "How could you?" But the kind that say, "I saw it, I felt it, thank you." There was nothing from Vera. But there was a message from my high school friend Claire, who I hadn't seen since we were both still figuring out who we were. It said, "I forgot how much I missed this version of you." Another from my uncle's wife. That gathering, it healed something I didn't even know needed healing. I sat up, pulled on my robe, and made my way to the kitchen. I poured myself a cup of coffee, black this time. No need for sweetness. The moment was rich enough. When you reclaim your name, others remember their own. Later that week, I received an email from a woman named Marissa at the Co-op bookstore on Belmont. She said someone had recommended me as a panel speaker for an event on chosen family and rebuilding identity. I nearly deleted it out of instinct. Me? A speaker? But I paused, I reread it, and then I typed back, I'd be honored. They printed a flyer, Rebuilding from Within, featuring Sable Waverly. It was surreal. The woman who had spent months trying not to be seen was now on a flyer in the window of the bookstore she used to hide in when things got too loud. A week after that, over an Americano with oat milk, a friend from Vera's social circle sat across from me and said something I didn't expect. She's quiet now. She's not defending herself anymore. She's not denying it. She's just avoiding. She stirred her tea slowly. People are talking, Sable, and not in the way they used to. I think you broke something that needed to break. I nodded, not smug. Not even satisfied, just steady. This wasn't vengeance. This was balance. I wasn't trying to ruin Vera's name. I was reclaiming mine. The Saturday following the panel, I hosted a small gathering at my place. No printed invitations this time, just texts, spontaneous laughter, friends who brought banana bread and stories about the old days. It wasn't an event. It was a room. One of them handed me a handmade card. Inside, thank you for reminding us that being left out doesn't mean we were wrong. I didn't cry. I just placed it gently into my journal, the same journal that now had sections labeled Truth, Witness, and Recovery. That night, I looked at the invitation I'd framed weeks ago, the one I'd made for myself, the one that said, Guest of Honor. I flipped it over and scribbled a line I needed to say out loud, even if only to paper. You were never invisible. You were waiting for your moment. Just before bed, I stepped out onto the porch to breathe in the cool air. A small envelope sat on the welcome mat. No name, no return address. Inside was a baby photo. On the back, in handwriting I hadn't seen in months. She's growing fast, and she looks just like you when you were little. I didn't break. I didn't brace. I just stood there, the breeze wrapping around my ankles, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. A week passed. No knock at the door, no call, no text. Vera's silence had grown roots, settling in like she'd decided that ignoring me to death would erase what I'd already spoken into existence. And still, she said nothing about the video, nothing about the gathering, nothing about the baby. But the world around her had shifted, not because I burned it down, but because I stopped carrying it. I opened my email one evening to dozens of new messages, not from her, but from others, people I hadn't heard from in years, friends who'd ghosted me after Vera's wedding, cousins who used to be part of our family group chat before Vera quietly curated it into silence. Thank you for giving us the space to speak. I never knew how to say it, but now I don't feel alone anymore. I used to believe what she said about you. I was wrong. It didn't heal everything, but it made room to exhale. Some people stay silent not out of regret, but because they never thought you'd speak. And once you do, they lose control of the script. That following Monday, I sat across from my lawyer in her downtown office. Janet was warm, sharp, and never once asked me if I was overreacting. She just asked, "What are we changing today?" "My beneficiaries," I said. "I'm making some updates." We reviewed my will, clause by clause. The trust I had set aside for Vera's child, I redirected it to a youth writing program. The sentimental items listed in my estate, several I crossed off entirely. And for my goddaughter, the one I had chosen, the daughter of a woman who never once asked me to be perfect, I added a note. To Lila, whose honesty will serve her more than likability ever could. Janet didn't ask for context, she just made the edits. Legacy, I told her, isn't built on who invites you. It's built on who you empower when you leave. She nodded, and we moved on. That Thursday evening, I got a formal envelope in the mail. Pale pink, gold seal. My mother's handwriting on the label. I already knew what it was before I opened it. A first birthday invitation. No mention of Vera on the paper, but everyone knew who was behind the curtain. It was hosted by family. Location was neutral. RSVP was requested. I held the card for a moment before turning it over. Then I drafted my response. Thank you for the invitation. I'll be celebrating the children who see me as family. No bitterness. Just a declaration of boundaries wrapped in calm. It's not always about burning bridges. Sometimes you just build a better shore. That night, I pulled out the soft-bound journal I'd been writing in for the past year. My chapters weren't always pretty, but they were mine. And on the first page, I wrote in clean black ink, "For the ones who showed up, even when no one clapped." Then I wrapped the journal in brown paper, tied it with twine, and walked down to the local library. They had a little free shelf near the checkout desk, one of those community corners where strangers leave notes and books for other strangers. I slipped the journal inside and left. The air was crisp that night, tinged with coming autumn. It smelled like change, not the kind you plan for, but the kind that shows up because you finally stopped pretending it wasn't necessary. As I rounded the corner to my apartment, my phone buzzed. It was a picture from Elowen, a candid snap someone else had taken at the gathering weeks ago. I was laughing, really laughing, the kind that softens your whole face, like your body forgot what pretending looked like. I didn't know that photo existed, but now that I'd seen it, I was glad it did. Later that evening, I sat on my porch with a glass of water and watched the light dim over the rooftops. No one needed to clap. I'd already heard what I needed. It was one of those Portland afternoons where the rain didn't fall hard. It simply lingered, a mist that felt more like memory than weather. I was sitting by the window, sipping chamomile, when my phone lit up with a photo from Carla, a mutual friend who had somehow remained civil to us both. I clicked it open. Vera stood near a balloon arch, pastel pinks and muted golds in the background. Her expression wasn't exactly sad, but it wasn't joy either. She held the baby on her hip, one arm stiff. Her smile was forced, the kind you wear when you're pretending to still be the main character in a story that's been rewritten. Carla's text followed. It felt empty. Something was missing, and everyone knew it. I didn't reply. I saved the photo and closed the app. Sometimes absence is the loudest presence in the room. They remembered me not because I reminded them, but because she couldn't hide that I was gone. That night, I sat at my desk with the soft light of the lamp casting gold over the cover of the booklet I'd been working on for months. It was finally done. A small, self-published work. Nothing fancy, nothing for shelves, but it held my truth. The title was simple. Uninvited, undone, unapologetic. Inside were pieces of everything. My scanned bank statement, screen captures of texts, the confession transcript. But more than that, it held the moments in between, the pauses, the quiet victories, the redefined center of gravity. The foreword read, "This isn't revenge, this is record-keeping." I signed 3 copies that night. One went into an envelope addressed to my lawyer, Janet. Another went to the library downtown, to their small community bookshelf. The third, well, that one I didn't address at all. I sealed it in brown paper, no name, and mailed it directly to Vera's office. I used her assistant's name on the envelope, just in case. Not defamation, just fact. I didn't expect a reaction. I didn't want one. Sometimes, the weight of knowing you've been seen is more than any confrontation can deliver. 3 days later, a final box arrived. No return label, but I knew who sent it. I could feel it before I even cut the tape. Inside was the baby blanket I had crocheted months ago. Still folded, still wrapped, untouched. Tucked inside was a small note card. No signature, just the words, "Not needed after all." I stared at the ribbon for a long time. The yarn had been soft, ocean blue with ivory edges. I remembered working on it late into the night, smiling without realizing it. I didn't cry. I didn't hold it to my chest or crumble in the quiet. Instead, I drove to the women's shelter on 82nd and handed it to the woman at the front desk. "Handmade," I said. "Still new," she smiled. "We always need these, thank you." And just like that, it was out of my hands. This wasn't mine to fix. It never was. Later that evening, I returned to my apartment, poured a glass of water, and pulled the final copy of my booklet from the shelf. I slid it open and tucked a note inside the spine, as if someone else might one day find it and understand more than I could say aloud. To the one who chose silence, I spoke so others could breathe again. I closed the book and placed it back where it belonged. And if she ever reads it, she'll know. I meant every word I never said out loud.